The rain had just begun when Harris stepped into the police station. It wasn't a heavy downpour, just a steady drizzle that coated the glass doors and softened the glow of the streetlights outside. His clothes were damp, but not soaked. It gave the impression of urgency without desperation, like someone who had come quickly, but not frantically. He paused briefly at the entrance, scanning the room before approaching the front desk. "I'm here to report my girlfriend missing," he said. His voice was steady, measured. Her name was Naomi. She had been gone for 4 days. Detective Mensah, seated behind a cluttered desk, leaned back slowly in his chair, studying him. Years on the job had sharpened his instincts. He knew how panic looked, how grief sounded. Harris displayed neither. 4 days is a long time, Mensah said. Why now? There was a pause, brief but noticeable. "I thought she needed space," Harris replied. It was a reasonable answer, but something about the delivery felt rehearsed. He went on to describe her: independent, quiet, intelligent, a university graduate, someone who kept to herself. He emphasized how much he had supported her: tuition, rent, living expenses. "I paid for everything," he added.
"She's not the type to just disappear." Mensah nodded slowly, jotting notes, but his eyes never left Harris's face. The investigation started routinely. Officers checked CCTV footage in the surrounding areas. Nothing. No sign of Naomi leaving her home, no trace of her movements. Her bank accounts showed no activity. Her phone signal had gone completely dark. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. Harris remained cooperative, eager even. He offered timelines, suggested places to search, listed people she knew. He seemed determined to help. Too determined. Among the names he provided was a man called Tony. "My girlfriend said he was her brother," Harris explained. The detail was noted and pinned to the growing caseboard. At the time, it didn't stand out.
As the hours passed, small inconsistencies began to surface. Detective Mensah reviewed Harris's statements carefully. Every detail was precise: dates, times, conversations. Harris remembered everything, except how he felt. There was no anger, no worry, no confusion, only facts. That absence unsettled Mensah more than any contradiction could. Then came the neighbors. One reported hearing raised voices 4 nights earlier, the same night Naomi had supposedly disappeared. Another mentioned a loud argument, followed by sudden silence. But Harris claimed he hadn't been home that night. And frustratingly, there was nothing to contradict him. The nearest CCTV camera was broken. No witnesses placed him at the scene. Still, the timeline was tightening, and it wasn't fitting cleanly. Investigators shifted focus to Naomi's life. What they found painted a more complicated picture. Yes, Harris had supported her financially, but it wasn't generosity alone. It came with expectations, control, dependency. Naomi relied on him for nearly everything. And yet, she had a side of her life he didn't know about. Her phone records had been wiped, but fragments were recovered. Messages, calls, patterns. Tony wasn't her brother. He was her lover. The tone of their messages made that clear. Intimate, playful, secretive. They had been seeing each other for months. The pieces began to form a narrative. 4 nights earlier,
Harris had come home unexpectedly. He wasn't supposed to. The house had been quiet when he entered, but not silent. There were voices, laughter, familiar but wrong. He moved slowly down the hallway, each step tightening something inside him. Light spilled from the bedroom door. He approached, and then he saw them. Naomi and Tony, together, close, unaware. In that instant, everything Harris believed he had, everything he had built, collapsed.
The confrontation erupted almost immediately. "You said he was your brother!" Harris shouted. Naomi froze, caught between shock and fear. Tony stepped forward, placing himself between them. Voices rose. Accusations flew. The room filled with tension so thick it felt suffocating. Then, suddenly, silence. A pause stretched between them, heavy and fragile. Harris reached into his bag. That single motion changed everything.
No one could later recount exactly what happened next. Neighbours would say they heard something, sharp, sudden noises, then another, then nothing. Inside the house, chaos gave way to stillness. Furniture had been disturbed. The air hung heavy. Harris stood alone. For a moment he simply breathed, trying to steady himself, trying to process what he had done. Then something shifted. He didn't panic. He began to think. Carefully, methodically. He cleaned the scene, wiping surfaces, removing evidence. He destroyed phones, erased traces, worked with chilling precision. When he was done, he transported the bodies far from the city, somewhere remote, isolated. He buried them deep enough that he believed no one would ever find them. 4 days later, he walked into the police station, calm, controlled, prepared. He presented himself as a concerned partner, a man searching for answers. He cooperated fully, offered help, guided the investigation. In doing so, he helped construct a case that led nowhere. Or so he thought.
Perfection rarely holds. There is always something overlooked. In Harris's case, it was small, almost insignificant. Soil. Traces of it clung to the grooves of his car tires, different from the city's composition. Detective Mensah noticed. The sample was analyzed, compared, traced. It led to a remote location far outside the urban area. Officers arrived at the site under a heavy sky. They dug in silence. It didn't take long. What they found confirmed everything. Harris was brought in again, this time not as a witness, but as a suspect. He sat across from Detective Mensah, the same man who had first taken his report. But the balance had shifted. "You helped us solve the case," Mensah said quietly. He let the words settle before continuing. "You just didn't realize it was against yourself." For the first time, Harris had no response, no carefully constructed explanation, no measured tone. Just silence, and the weight of truth closing in around him. In the end, what remained were fragments of lives once lived. Memories reduced to evidence,
relationships reduced to motive. A photograph of Naomi, smiling at a future she never reached. A memory of Tony, unaware of how quickly joy can turn to jorg. A broken story, held together by one fatal mistake. Outside, the rain continued to fall. Quiet, steady, indifferent. And somewhere behind closed doors, a case file was marked Salt.